Good evening, America. This is Dennis Lee and Minta Jun coming to you from Flower News, a decade in review.
The Great Depression and the New Deal, 1929 to 1939.
After the prosperous 1920s, which actually was not as prosperous as it may have seemed.
On October 29th, 1929, which became known as Black Tuesday, the stock market crashed. Within a week, the value of all the shares in the market dropped $30 billion. In the next 4 years, the stock market remained deeply depressed and did not recover for over a decade.
That's actually some spooky stuff, but you have to agree with me, the crash was not the initial cause of the Great Depression.
Oh yeah, certainly. There are many underlying earlier causes of the Great Depression that were simply just manifested in the stock market crash, but the stock market crash wasn't necessarily the biggest cause of the Great Depression itself. The lack of diversification in the economy mostly centered on construction and automobiles. Obviously, there were other industries like petroleum that were emerging, but they weren't really big enough yet to make an effect. The credit structure in the U.S. economy was not good for people, no, especially the maldistribution of wealth. There was such a big gap between the rich and the poor. The lack of demand for American goods from Europe led to declining American exports, lower GDP, not good.
Not good at all.
Loss of confidence then, and the deflationary spiral that occurred, not good either. Lack of investment, not good for GDP, not good for production. Yeah, it was just a bad, vicious cycle.
Vicious cycle indeed. Later on, this actually led to a terrible economic state by the end of Hoover's presidency.
Oh yes.
Thankfully, we have FDR.
But we can't quite go there yet. We can't quite go to FDR. We still have to talk about all the things that happened during the Great Depression that are still relevant today in 1939. For example, the banking collapse. Over 9,000 banks closed or became bankrupt between 1930 and 1933, and over $2.5 billion were lost from depositors' accounts in banks.
Guys, this means that if I were to go to a bank in 1933 and ask for $2,000, I wouldn't be getting it.
Nope, you would not be getting any of it. Nope. You would not be getting a single penny of that, because just like every other panic in the nation's history, there was over-speculation and there was so much loaning, and banks pretty much had a minimal amount of money that they were actually holding at any given time. So after people would borrow from the banks, and in the stock market crash and in the years that followed, they would lose all that money. Suddenly that money was just not there anymore, and they couldn't really return it so quickly to the banks, so the banks actually didn't have that much money. They couldn't really cover any of the depositors who were asking for their money, so they had to close, or they just went bankrupt. Unemployment during that time, after the loss of confidence, the lack of investment, and all that money lost, unemployment went to 25% in 1932, and it averaged 20% for the next decade until now. And in cities,
bread lines stretched for blocks from Salvation Army and Red Cross food kitchens. People simply needed food.
People also simply needed jobs. Fathers were not getting the jobs that they needed to support their families. And along with this, Mr. Hoover, he was seen as some sort of patrician, an aristocrat, a rich person that just did not care for the poor. However,
Hoover did head some programs that supported the battle against the Depression, such as the Hoover Dam.
Also, in 1929, Hoover proposed the Agricultural Marketing Act, which helped farmers maintain prices.
Hey, Dennis, is this the act that created the Farm Board and actually bought farmer surpluses?
Yes, it did actually. It bought farmer surpluses. However, in an effort to protect farmers from international competition, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff of 1930 was passed, raising tariffs on over 20,000 goods to record levels. Neither it nor the Agricultural Marketing Act, however, were really effective in helping out the American farmer. Lastly, one of the The biggest program, actually, in Hoover's administration was created in January of 1930. This was the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, and unfortunately, it was about as effective as the old Reconstruction.
The RFC had a $1.5 billion budget. However, only 20% of it was used. There was not enough spending, and it was just not good for the economy. It was just as ineffective as all of Hoover's other programs. On greater news about the Great Depression, the Great Depression promoted a greater sense of the arts, literature, and entertainment.
For example, The Three Little Pigs, created and animated by our favorite producer, Walt Disney. Him and other comedians helped to create a sense of escape for us. A sense of escape was also present in the radio. The radio was a commodity that almost everyone had. Programs such as The Lone Ranger helped for many Americans to become lost in a wild western theme.
Dennis, wasn't that radio amazing? I mean, I just feel like it was the greatest thing ever.
Why?
6 years ago, it was great.
Are you saying that you don't still have a radio?
I mean, I do, but it's just like...
The TV, but
TV.
still.
Ring, 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 ring.
Yes? Oh, you have an interview for us. The Great Depression? First-hand experiences? We'll be right there. Hey, Andy, I heard you were hit really hard by the Great Depression. Can you tell me what happened?
Yes, I was doing pretty well. Everything was really good. I went to the bank one day to get my money, but I lost all my money. They weren't giving it to me, so. And I even lost my job to a white guy, so I didn't even get to get my money back by working.
So what did you have to do? Where did you go?
I had to move to this shack, Hooverville.
Right here?
Yeah,
Is this where you slept?
yeah. I was that poor.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
But how are you doing now?
I started a business, doing really well. I bought this new car, Volkswagen.
New car, Volkswagen, huh? German?
Yeah.
You must have a lot of money. This company was established 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it's doing really well. Good job. I'm happy for you. Well, there you have it, straight from the man himself.
Yep. And he's not the only one who had those things happen to him. Lots of other Asian Americans and blacks and even Mexican Americans were pushed out of their jobs by white people.
Not us. Because we have this super cool news media, Flower News, almost as cool as FDR.
But on a different note, women employment actually increased, which is a good thing. But unfortunately for them, the influence of feminism decreased.
Just kidding, guys. Women are equal.
And now we've arrived at the New Deal, and our segment, The First 100 Days in 100 Seconds. March 9th to June 16th, 1933.
Ready? Get set! Go!
In the category of financial reform, the Emergency Banking Act of March 9th helped banks with money. The Government Economy Act of March 20th cut payments to reduce the budget deficit. The U.S. abandoned the gold standard on April 19th. The Securities Act of May 27th regulated the sale of securities with the SEC. The Homeowners Loan Act of June 13th provided mortgage assistance. And the Glass-Steagall Banking Act of June 16th limited commercial bank securities activities.
In the category of jobs and relief programs, the Civilian Conservation Corps of May 31st helped unmarried and unemployed men get jobs. The Federal Emergency Relief Act of May 12th gave loans to states to pay for reliefs. The National Industry Recovery Act of June 16th gave authorization to the President to regulate industry. The Emergency Railroad Transportation Act of June 16th required national railroads to limit lanes.
In the category of rural reform, the Agricultural Adjustment Act of May 12th formed the AAA to level farm prices. The Emergency Farm Mortgage Act of May 12th extended some farmer mortgages repayment schedules. The Tennessee Valley Authority Act of May 18th formed the Tennessee Valley Authority to develop the Tennessee Valley. The Farm Credit Act of June 16th formed the Farm Credit Administration for farmer mortgages assistance.
In the category of prohibition, the Beer Wine Revenue Act of March 22nd allowed some sale of alcohol. This led in part to the 21st Amendment. How many seconds do we have left?
And we have 10 seconds left.
And in our next category, just kidding. That was pretty fun, but we gotta move on.
But you know, Minsu, there were people who didn't even like Roosevelt's policies. What? Huey Long was calling for Huey Long, a senator, he was calling for the redistribution of wealth with his Share Our Wealth plan.
Wait, does that sound like
Communism?
Are we North Korea in the
I
future?
know, right? And Charles Coughlin wanted the nationalization of banks, and he was a fascist.
Fascist?
And he was anti-Semitic.
Stalin?
Oh, I know, right?
What are we?
I know. In response to these ungrounded criticisms by these ungrounded people, Roosevelt began what we like to call the Second New Deal, in which he passed the Social Security Act of 1935, which gave unemployment insurance and assistance to the old people. The National Labor Relations Act of 1935, aka the Wagner Act, which encouraged collective bargaining between employees and employers and protected their rights. The Banking Act of 1935, which made the FDIC permanent, which was, by the way, established in the Glass-Steagall Banking Act. The Works Progress Administration was created, which provided jobs and helped people express themselves artistically and musically and in whatever which way they wanted to. And later, in 1938, he got passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, which established a 40-hour work week and a minimum wage. Also, in the election of 1936, just like in the election of 1932, Roosevelt landslided, this time against the weak campaign of Alf M. Landon. As we all know, that was just not a good campaign, and neither was Hoover's, really. He had a terrible reputation. And by now, the New Deal was pretty much over.
Pretty much. Not new legislation has been passed in
Yeah.
a pretty long time.
We haven't really seen much in the last 2 years or so. Yeah. I think Roosevelt's done with the New Deal. I think he's ready to move on to more greater things.
Yeah, maybe like dominating the world.
I know. Perhaps.
Maybe like fighting another country like that's pretty much bigger than the United States.
Yeah.
Maybe like staring at them for a very long time. Thank you for joining us tonight. You have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next decade.
That was the first real bad sign of the Great Depression and bad luck. But now we have FDR, so we can buy that new car to make sure our future doesn't suck.
Rob never opened the door or put that to the chair. Never asked me how my day was cause he didn't really care. And if I ever got gold, he just come and take it cause if he poured too, if he really had to make it like, whoa, what a mean fellow. Took all my money so he could sit in the door. Never did nothing wrong. He's the one to blame when the waiter brings the bill. I just had to run away cause